Welcome, dear listener, to Sleepless Survivors. Tonight, we invite you to drift into peaceful slumber as we explore one of humanity's most enduring mysteries. Close your eyes, settle into comfort, and let your mind wander through the ancient tales of the Anunnaki, the enigmatic planet Nibiru, and the celestial prophecies that have captivated imaginations for millennia. Let the gentle rhythm of this narrative carry you into restful sleep. In the quiet darkness of your room, imagine yourself transported back through time, back to the cradle of civilization, to ancient Mesopotamia. Picture the Tigris and Euphrates rivers flowing through vast plains, their waters glittering under starlit skies. It is here, in this land between two rivers, that humanity first recorded its stories, its beliefs, and its encounters with beings who came from the heavens. The Sumerians, one of Earth's earliest civilizations, left behind clay tablets covered in cuneiform script. These tablets speak of gods who walked among men, beings of immense power and knowledge who descended from the sky. They called these beings the Anunnaki, a name that translates roughly to those who came from heaven to earth. Let yourself relax as we explore their story, allowing your breathing to slow, your muscles to release their tension. According to ancient Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki were the supreme deities of their pantheon. Breathe deeply and imagine these towering figures, described as beings of great stature and luminous presence. The texts tell us that they came from a distant world, a planet the Sumerians called Nibiru. This mysterious celestial body, according to legend, follows an elliptical orbit through our solar system, appearing in Earth's skies only once every 3,600 years. Let your mind drift now to the cosmos. Picture the vast expanse of space, the countless stars scattered like diamonds across black velvet. Somewhere in this infinite darkness, according to ancient belief, travels the planet Nibiru, making its slow, majestic journey through the heavens. The Anunnaki, inhabitants of this wandering world, are said to have first arrived on Earth approximately 450,000 years ago. Why did they come? The ancient texts provide an answer that seems almost practical in its simplicity. The Anunnaki needed gold, not for adornment or wealth, but for survival. According to Sumerian legends, their homeworld's atmosphere was deteriorating, and they required vast quantities of gold dust to repair it, to shield their planet from harmful radiation, and to preserve their civilization. Feel yourself sinking deeper into relaxation as we continue. The Anunnaki established settlements on Earth, primarily in what would become Mesopotamia. They created elaborate cities and began the arduous work of mining gold from the earth. For thousands of years they toiled, extracting precious metals from deep within our planet. But the work was backbreaking, even for beings. As advanced as they were, the texts speak of a rebellion among the working class of Anunnaki, those assigned to the mines. They grew weary of the endless labour, the harsh conditions beneath the earth. In response to this crisis, the Anunnaki leadership, particularly the god Enki, known as the Lord of Earth and Waters, proposed a solution that would forever change the course of life on this planet. They would create a worker race. Using their advanced knowledge of genetics and biology, they would take the primitive hominids that already existed on Earth and enhance them, uplift them, create beings intelligent enough to understand instructions and perform complex tasks, yet dependent enough to serve their creators. This new species would be called Adamu in Sumerian, a word that resonates through history and scripture. Let yourself imagine the sacred laboratory where this transformation took place. Ancient texts describe how Enki and the goddess Ninhursag, the mother goddess, worked together to create the first humans. They took the essence of the Anunnaki, their divine spark, and combined it with the terrestrial genetics of Earth's existing primates. Through a process that the ancient scribes described in terms they understood, mixing clay with blood, the first true humans were born. This creation story, preserved in cuneiform on clay tablets thousands of years old, bears striking similarities to later creation myths, including those found in the Hebrew Bible. The Garden of Eden, the Tree of Knowledge, the serpent who offered wisdom to humanity, all these elements find their predecessors in Sumerian tales. Enki himself was often associated with the serpent, the symbol of wisdom and knowledge, the one who wished to enlighten humanity against the wishes of other gods. Breathe slowly now, feeling your body grow heavier, more relaxed. The story of humanity's creation by the Anunnaki introduces us to a pantheon of deities, each with their distinct personalities, domains, and agendas. At the head of this celestial hierarchy stood Anu, the Sky Father, the supreme ruler who remained primarily on Nibiru, governing from afar. His sons, however, took active roles on Earth. Enlil, the Lord of the Command, was stern and authoritarian, viewing humans as mere tools, workers to be controlled and managed. He established his seat of power in the city of Nipper, and from there he oversaw the operations on Earth with an iron fist. Enlil saw humanity as an experiment, a temporary solution to the Anunnaki's labour shortage, nothing more. Enki, by contrast, grew fond of his creations. As the architect of humanity, he felt a paternal responsibility toward these beings who carried within them a spark of the divine. The ancient texts describe numerous occasions when Enki defied his brother Enlil to protect or assist humanity. He was the trickster god, the wise counsellor, the one who gave humans the gifts of knowledge and civilization. And then there was Ninhursag, sometimes called Ninmah, the mother goddess who worked alongside Enki in humanity's creation. She is described in the texts as the Lady of Life, the one who shaped the first humans in her womb. The ancient Sumerians revered her as the ultimate mother, the source of all human life. Let your consciousness drift now through the antediluvian world, the world before the Great Flood. According to Sumerian king lists, this was an age of wonder and longevity. Kings reigned for thousands of years. The Anunnaki walked openly among humans, teaching them arts and sciences, agriculture and mathematics, astronomy and writing. Cities rose from the plains, Eridu, Ur, Uruk, Lagash, each one a centre of learning and culture under the guidance of Anunnaki patrons. The tablets speak of 7 sages, the Apkallu, beings of immense wisdom who emerged from the sea to teach humanity the fundamentals of civilization. These sages, possibly Anunnaki themselves or their servants, instructed humans in the construction of temples, the observation of stars, the cultivation of crops, and the domestication of animals. They laid the foundations for everything that would follow. Picture these ancient cities in your mind's eye. Massive ziggurats rising toward the heavens, their mud brick walls gleaming in the desert sun. These weren't merely temples, but landing platforms, communication centres, physical connections between earth and sky. The Anunnaki would descend in their celestial boats, craft that roared with fire and shook the ground, vehicles that the primitive humans could only describe as divine chariots. As humanity multiplied and spread across the land, tensions grew between the Anunnaki themselves. Enlil became increasingly disturbed by the noise and chaos of human civilization. The texts describe how the clamour of humanity interrupted his rest, how he grew to despise the very creatures his brother had helped create. This resentment would eventually lead to a catastrophic decision. The Anunnaki astronomers, those who watched the skies with instruments far beyond the understanding of their human servants, detected something troubling. Nibiru was returning on its orbital path, and this time its gravitational influence would trigger massive instabilities on Earth. Specifically, the ice sheets of Antarctica would become unstable, sliding into the ocean and creating a global deluge of unprecedented scale. Enlil saw an opportunity. He convened the Council of the Anunnaki and convinced them to remain silent, to let humanity perish in the coming flood. They would return to Nibiru or retreat to orbital stations, waiting out the catastrophe, and afterward they could start fresh without the troublesome humans. The Council agreed, and they swore an oath not to warn humanity of its impending doom. But Enki could not abide by this decision. Let your breathing slow even further as we explore this pivotal moment in the ancient narrative. Enki, bound by his oath not to directly tell, humans about the coming disaster found a loophole worthy of the trickster god he was. He spoke to a reed wall, and behind that wall stood Zusudra, known in later Akkadian texts as Atrahasis, and in Hebrew scripture as Noah. Through this indirect communication, Enki warned of the coming deluge and provided instructions. Build a boat, he commanded, a massive vessel capable of surviving the greatest storm Earth would ever see. Gather animals, 2 of every kind. Preserve the genetic diversity of Earth's creatures. Gather seeds and the knowledge of civilization, so that when the waters recede, humanity can rebuild. The Great Flood came just as the Anunnaki predicted. The ice sheets collapsed. Walls of water hundreds of feet high swept across continents. Mountains were submerged. The entire world was transformed in a matter of days. The Anunnaki retreated to their celestial ships, watching from orbit as the Earth was cleansed of humanity, or so they thought. When Enlil descended after the waters began to recede and discovered that humans had survived, his rage was tremendous. He immediately knew that Enki had betrayed the Council's decision. But something unexpected happened. As the Anunnaki leaders debated what to do with the survivors, they realized that they still needed humanity. The gold mines still required workers, the fields still needed to be tended, and perhaps some of the gods had grown more attached to their human subjects than they cared to admit. A compromise was reached. Humanity would be allowed to continue, but changes would be made. Human lifespans, which according to the ancient king lists had stretched for centuries or even millennia, would be dramatically reduced. Humans would be made more mortal, their divine spark diluted. They would remain intelligent enough to serve, but would not live long enough to accumulate the kind of wisdom and knowledge that might make them rivals to their creators. Let your mind rest easy now as we move forward through the mist of time. After the flood, civilization began anew. The Anunnaki helped humanity rebuild, establishing new cities and guiding the development of post-Diluvian culture. But something had changed. The relationship between gods and humans was different now, more distant, more formal. The ancient texts describe a new phase in Earth's history, where the Anunnaki began to withdraw from direct involvement in human affairs. They established kingship as an institution, creating human intermediaries who would rule in their name. The concept of divine right monarchy was born, the idea that kings ruled because they were chosen by the gods, that they carried within them a measure of divine authority. In the city of Kish, the first post-flood dynasty was established. Then Uruk rose to prominence, ruled by legendary kings like Gilgamesh, who was said to be two-thirds divine, the son of a goddess and a human priest. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest surviving stories, tells of this king's quest for immortality, his friendship with the wild man Enkidu, and his ultimate acceptance of human mortality. Throughout these tales runs a consistent thread: the presence of the Anunnaki as active participants in human history. They fought wars through human proxies. They took human lovers and produced hybrid offspring. They established temples where priests and priestesses performed sacred rituals to maintain the connection between earth and heaven. They were not abstract concepts, but physical beings with desires, conflicts, and agendas. As you relax deeper into sleep, consider the archaeological evidence that some researchers claim supports these ancient narratives. In Araic and surrounding regions, archaeologists have uncovered thousands of cuneiform tablets that tell these stories in remarkable detail. The consistency of the accounts across different cities and time periods is striking. The Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians all preserved variations of these same tales. There are cylinder seals showing beings wearing strange objects that some interpret as technological devices. There are depictions of celestial bodies that don't quite match conventional astronomical understanding. There are ancient diagrams that some claim show a model of the solar system, including planets, that weren't officially discovered until modern times. Of course, mainstream archaeology interprets these artifacts differently, as religious symbolism and mythological representations rather than historical records. But let us continue with the legend itself, for whether metaphor or memory, it makes for a profound meditation as you drift towards sleep. The planet Nibiru, according to these ancient accounts, continued its long elliptical orbit through the cosmos. The Anunnaki who remained on Earth were cut off from their homeworld for millennia at a time, living through the long wait between Nibiru's returns to the inner solar system. This isolation may have contributed to the increasing complexity of Anunnaki politics on Earth. Various gods established their own city-states, their own spheres of influence. Enlil controlled the northern territories. Enki held sway in the southern regions, and the Abzu, the deep waters. Inanna, the goddess of love and war, granddaughter of Enlil, ruled over Uruk and later sought dominion over all lands. The texts describe Inanna, also known as Ishtar, as a complex and compelling figure. She was fierce in battle, passionate in love, and relentless in her ambitions. The ancient stories tell of her descent into the underworld, her confrontation with her sister Ereshkigal, and her eventual resurrection. They speak of her relationship with the mortal shepherd Dumuzi, whose death became the basis for seasonal festivals celebrating death and rebirth. These weren't simple myths told around campfires. They were the official narratives of sophisticated civilizations, preserved by trained scribes in temple archives. They were taught in the Aduba, the ancient schools where young scribes learned the cuneiform script and the traditional knowledge of their culture. They were performed as sacred dramas during religious festivals, reenacting the deeds of the gods for assembled crowds. Feel your body becoming weightless now, as if you could float up through the ceiling, up through the atmosphere, out into space where you might catch a glimpse of the mysterious Nibiru on its endless journey. Modern researchers who take these legends seriously have spent decades trying to locate this mysterious 10th planet, searching for gravitational anomalies and unexplained perturbations in the orbits of known celestial bodies. Some have pointed to discoveries like Planet 9, a hypothetical planet in the outer solar system whose existence is inferred from the orbital behaviour of distant objects in the Kuiper belt. Could this be Nibiru? The mainstream scientific community says no, the orbital characteristics don't match the ancient descriptions. But for those who believe, the search continues. The ancient texts provide specific information about Nibiru's orbit. They describe it as taking 3,600 years to complete one revolution around the Sun, travelling far out beyond the known planets before swinging back through the inner solar system. Some calculations place its last close approach around 1500 BCE, which would mean the next return might not occur for another 2,000 years. Others interpret the texts differently, suggesting the timeframes are symbolic rather than literal, or that the Sumerian counting systems have been misunderstood. There are researchers who believe Nibiru's return is imminent, that we are living in the end times described in ancient prophecy, that the Anunnaki will soon return to reclaim their creation and judge humanity's stewardship of the earth. Let these thoughts wash over you like gentle waves as your consciousness drifts. Whether literal truth or elaborate mythology, these stories speak to something deep in the human psyche, our sense that we came from somewhere else, that we are connected to the stars, that we are not alone in the cosmos. The mythology of the Anunnaki spread far beyond Mesopotamia. As civilizations traded and conquered, as peoples migrated and merged, these stories travelled with them, transforming and adapting to new cultures. Scholars have traced elements of Sumerian mythology into later Semitic religions, into Egyptian belief systems, into Greek and Roman pantheons. The Anunnaki themselves appear under different names in different traditions. Enki becomes Ea in Akkadian texts, Ptah in Egyptian mythology, and some even argue he appears as Prometheus in Greek tales, the one who gave forbidden knowledge to humanity and suffered for his transgression. Enlil morphs into Elil, and later perhaps into the stern father god of Semitic traditions. Inanna becomes Ishtar, then Astarte, then Aphrodite, each iteration, preserving core elements while adapting to new cultural contexts. The seven Apkallu, those wise beings who taught humanity, appear in various forms across cultures, as the seven sages of India, as the seven angels who stand before God's throne in Hebrew tradition, as the seven wise men who travelled from the East in various legends. The number 7 itself becomes sacred, appearing repeatedly in religious texts and rituals, and the flood story, the great deluge that destroyed the world, appears in cultures across the globe. From the biblical account of Noah to the Mesopotamian tale of Ziusudra, to the Greek story of Deucalion, to Native American flood legends, to Australian Aboriginal accounts. Hundreds of cultures preserve memories of a catastrophic flood that wiped out civilization. Is this evidence of a real event witnessed by early humanity? Collective memory of the end of the Ice Age when sea levels rose dramatically? Or something even more mysterious? Breathe deeply, and let these questions float away like clouds drifting across a peaceful sky. You don't need to solve these mysteries tonight. Simply let them be a backdrop for your journey into sleep. The ancient world is gone, but its stories remain, echoing through time. As centuries passed in the ancient narratives, the presence of the Anunnaki became less direct, more subtle. They appeared less frequently in the flesh, communicating instead through dreams, visions, and oracles. Temples became the primary point of contact between the divine and human realms. Priests and priestesses served as intermediaries, interpreting the will of the gods through divination, through the reading of omens in the stars, in the flight of birds, in the patterns of oil on water, in the livers of sacrificed animals. This shift from direct contact to mediated communication might reflect the Anunnaki's gradual departure from Earth, or perhaps their decision to take a less active role in human affairs. The texts suggest that as humanity became more numerous, and civilization more complex, the gods found it increasingly difficult to manage their creation directly, Delegating authority to human rulers and priests allowed them to maintain control while withdrawing to more remote locations. Some traditions place the Anunnaki in heaven, others in underground cities, still others in orbital platforms or even on the far side of the moon. The specifics vary, but the theme remains consistent. The gods are still present, still watching, but no longer walking among us as they once did. Let your mind wander now through the great cities of ancient Mesopotamia at their height. Imagine Babylon during the reign of Hammurabi, its massive walls and the towering ziggurat of Anunnaki, the inspiration for the biblical Tower of Babel. Picture the Ishtar Gate with its brilliant blue glazed bricks decorated with golden dragons and bulls. Hear the bustle of the marketplace, the chants of priests in the temples, the discussions of scholars in the academies. This was a sophisticated civilization with advanced mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and law. The Code of Hammurabi, one of history's earliest legal documents, established principles of justice and social order. Babylonian astronomers could predict eclipses and planetary movements with remarkable accuracy. Their medical texts describe surgical procedures and pharmaceutical remedies. Their literature includes creation epics, wisdom literature, love poetry, and historical chronicles. All of this, according to the legends, was built on foundations laid by the Anunnaki, knowledge gifted from the gods to humanity. The Sumerians themselves credited their writing system to Enki, their mathematics to Nisaba, the goddess of scribes, their agricultural techniques to various deities associated with fertility and growth. They saw themselves not as the creators of their civilization, but as the inheritors and caretakers of divine knowledge. This perspective continued through subsequent Mesopotamian cultures. The Akkadians, who conquered Sumer and adopted much of its culture, maintained the same basic worldview. So did the Babylonians and Assyrians who followed. For over 3,000 years, the peoples of Mesopotamia lived within a cosmology that placed the Anunnaki at the centre of existence, that understood human history as the story of our relationship with these beings from the stars. As you sink deeper into relaxation, consider how this worldview shaped everything about these ancient cultures. Their cities were designed as earthly reflections of heavenly order. Their kings performed sacred rituals to ensure cosmic harmony. Their farmers planted and harvested according to celestial calendars. Their entire society was organized around maintaining proper relationship with the divine. The ziggurats themselves embodied this connection. These massive stepped pyramids weren't just architectural marvels, they were cosmic mountains, physical representations of the primordial mound that emerged from the waters of chaos at creation. Climbing the ziggurat was symbolically ascending from the earthly realm toward the heavenly. At the summit stood a shrine where the deity of that city was believed to reside, where priests performed the most sacred rituals, where heaven and earth met. Archaeologists have excavated the remains of these structures, measuring their precise orientations and proportions. Many align with significant astronomical events, solstices, equinoxes, the rising of particular stars. This wasn't accidental. The Anunnaki, according to legend, were celestial beings, and their temples were designed to reflect and honour their cosmic origins. The ancient priests tracked the movements of the planets, which they understood as the celestial manifestations of the gods themselves. Each major deity was associated with a celestial body, Anu with the heavens as a whole, Enlil with Jupiter, the king of planets, Enki with Mercury, swift and clever, Inanna with Venus, bright and beautiful, Sin with the moon, Shamash with the sun, Nergal with Mars, red and warlike. These weren't arbitrary associations, but part of a complex system of correspondences that linked every aspect of existence, celestial and terrestrial, divine and human, macrocosm and microcosm. To understand one level was to understand all levels. This holistic worldview, so different from modern reductionist thinking, pervaded ancient Mesopotamian culture. Let yourself drift on these ancient currents of thought. Feel how they connect to something deeper than simple superstition, how they represent an attempt to understand humanity's place in a vast and mysterious cosmos. Whether the Anunnaki were real beings or symbolic representations of cosmic forces, the culture built around them achieved remarkable things. The mathematical system developed by the Sumerians, based on the number 60, gave us our 60-second minute, our 60-minute hour, our 360-degree circle. Their astronomical observations laid the groundwork for later Greek and Islamic astronomy, which in turn informed European science. Their literature influenced the Hebrew Bible, which shaped Western civilization. Their legal concepts spread throughout the ancient Near East and beyond. In a very real sense, we are all inheritors of Sumerian civilization, whether we acknowledge it or not. The alphabet you're hearing these words in traces its ancestry back to scripts developed in and around Mesopotamia. The 7-day week, the 12-month year, the concept of horoscopes based on zodiac signs, all these have Mesopotamian roots. Our very concept of civilization as something built around cities, specialized labor, written records, and centralized government comes from Sumer, and all of it, according to the legends, was taught to us by the Anunnaki. As the centuries rolled on, the political landscape of Mesopotamia changed repeatedly. Empires rose and fell. Sumer gave way to Akkad, which gave way to Babylon, which fell to Assyria, which was conquered by Persia. Each new power adapted the old stories to support their own legitimacy. Kings claimed descent from the gods, or divine appointment to rule. Scribes rewrote creation epics to elevate the patron deity of their city above others. Yet beneath these political manipulations, the core narratives remained remarkably stable. The basic cosmology, the pantheon of major deities, the fundamental stories of creation, flood, and the relationship between gods and humans, these persisted across millennia and multiple cultures. This consistency suggests the stories held deep meaning beyond mere political propaganda. Breathe slowly and let your body grow heavier still. Feel yourself sinking into your bed as we continue this journey through ancient mysteries. Even as Mesopotamian civilization eventually faded, conquered by Greeks and then Romans, converted to new religions, the memory of the Anunnaki survived in fragmented form. Early Christian communities in the Middle East preserved traditions about the Nephilim, the sons of God, who mated with human women and produced hybrid offspring. These stories, briefly mentioned in Genesis, drew from older Mesopotamian traditions about divine-human interaction. The Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text not included in most biblical canons, elaborates on these tales, describing watchers who descended from heaven to teach humanity forbidden knowledge. The parallels to Anunnaki narratives are striking. The watchers taught humans about weapons and warfare, cosmetics and seduction, astrology and divination. The same mix of beneficial and potentially dangerous knowledge attributed to the Anunnaki. Like the Anunnaki, they took human partners and produced offspring. Like Enlil's reaction to humanity's multiplication, the chief deity in the Enoch narrative decides to send a flood to cleanse the earth of corruption. These connections have led some researchers to propose that the Anunnaki legends represent a historical core around which later religious traditions crystallized. Others argue the similarities result from independent cultures grappling with similar existential questions about human origins and the divine. Still others believe both the Mesopotamian and Hebrew texts preserve authentic memories of real events, encounters with beings who are neither wholly divine nor wholly terrestrial. In Islamic tradition, the jinn represent a parallel creation, beings made of smokeless fire who inhabit the earth alongside humans but exist in a different dimensional frequency. Like the Anunnaki, they possess advanced knowledge and capabilities but are not omnipotent or infallible. They can interact with humans, even intermarry, and they have their own complex societies with hierarchies and conflicts. Could the jinn represent another cultural memory of the same beings? Let these connections and correspondences flow through your relaxing mind like a gentle river. You don't need to reach any conclusions. Simply observe how stories echo and ripple across cultures and time, how humanity has always tried to explain its origins, its relationship with the cosmos, its sense of being connected to something greater. The rediscovery of ancient Mesopotamia in the 19th century, when archaeologists began excavating tells in Iraq and deciphering cuneiform texts, opened a window into this lost world. Scholars were astonished by the sophistication and antiquity of Sumerian civilization. Here was a culture that predated ancient Greece and Rome by millennia, that had developed writing, literature, law, and urban civilization when most of Europe was still in the Stone Age. As more tablets were translated, the full richness of Mesopotamian mythology became apparent. The creation epic Enuma Elish, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the myths of Inanna's descent, the flood story in its original form, all these emerged from the dust of millennia. Scholars recognized the influence these texts had on later traditions. The similarities between the Mesopotamian flood narrative and the biblical story of Noah were undeniable. The connections between Mesopotamian creation myths and Genesis became clear. This sparked intense debate in academic and religious circles. If the biblical texts drew from older Mesopotamian sources, what did that mean for their claimed divine inspiration? How should we understand the relationship between these parallel traditions? Were they different cultural expressions of universal truths, or was one tradition derived from and secondary to the other? These questions remain contentious, but for our purposes tonight, as you drift peacefully towards sleep, they are less important than the stories themselves. Whether the Anunnaki were ancient astronauts, symbolic representations of natural forces, archetypal figures from the collective unconscious, or some combination of all these and more, their stories continue to fascinate and inspire. In the mid-20th century, a new interpretation of these ancient texts emerged through the work of Zecharia Sitchin, a Russian-American author who proposed that the Sumerian texts should be read as literal historical accounts rather than mythology. Sitchin's books, beginning with The 12th Planet published in 1976, introduced millions of readers to the concept of ancient astronauts and planet Nibiru. Sitchin claimed that his translations of Sumerian texts revealed that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrial beings from a planet called Nibiru, that they came to Earth to mine gold, that they genetically engineered Homo sapiens as a slave race, and that they were responsible for the sudden leap in human civilization around 3800 BCE. He proposed that the Anunnaki had bases on Mars, that they created the asteroid belt by destroying a planet, that Nibiru returns to the inner solar system every 600 years. His theories were and remain highly controversial. Academic scholars of Sumerian language and culture dispute his translations and interpretations. Astronomers point out that a planet with the orbital characteristics Sitchin described couldn't exist in a stable configuration. Biologists note that the genetic engineering he describes would be impossible given the incompatibility between hypothetical alien and terrestrial DNA. Yet Sitchin's work captured popular imagination in a way academic treatments of Mesopotamian mythology never did. He presented the ancient texts as science fiction that might actually be science fact. He offered an alternative narrative of human origins that was both ancient and modern, mystical and technological. For many readers dissatisfied with conventional religious explanations or feeling that evolutionary theory left out something important about human nature, Sitchin's theories provided a compelling middle ground. Let yourself relax completely now, making no judgment about these competing interpretations. Feel your breathing slow, your heartbeat calm, your thoughts begin to scatter and fade like stars disappearing at dawn. Whether the Anunnaki were myth or memory, the power of their story lies in what it reveals about human consciousness, about our eternal quest to understand where we came from and what our place might be in the cosmic order. The idea that humanity was created or guided by advanced beings from elsewhere resonates across cultures and throughout history. From the cargo cults of Melanesia waiting for the gods to return with their material bounty, to Native American traditions of star people who taught the tribe's sacred knowledge, to African legends of the Nomo who came from Sirius to bring wisdom, the theme repeats endlessly. Carl Jung might have argued these represent archetypes emerging from the collective unconscious, universal patterns that structure human consciousness. Others see them as corrupted memories of real events, historical encounters distorted by time and cultural transmission. Still others view them as entirely mythological, meaningful not as historical accounts, but as symbolic narratives that encode practical wisdom, ethical teachings, and cosmological understanding. The modern UFO phenomenon adds another layer to this ancient mystery. Reports of unidentified flying objects, alleged encounters with non-human intelligences, accounts of abduction and genetic manipulation. All these echo themes from the ancient Anunnaki narratives. Are we experiencing a modern manifestation of an ancient pattern of contact? Are the Anunnaki still here, still involved with humanity in ways we don't fully recognize? Or are we projecting ancient stories onto ambiguous modern experiences? Consider how the ancient Sumerians described the vehicles of the gods, boats that flew through the air, that roared with fire, that shook the earth when they landed. They described the gods descending in these craft from the heavens, landing atop ziggurats or in sacred precincts. Modern UFO witnesses describe similar phenomena, craft that defy known aerodynamics, that produce unusual sounds and lights that land leaving physical traces. The ancient texts speak of the gods taking humans up into the sky, showing them the earth from above, taking them to visit other realms. Modern abductees report being taken aboard craft, subjected to medical examinations, shown images of Earth from space, told messages about humanity's future. The parallelism is striking, even if no conclusions can be drawn from it. Feel your consciousness beginning to float free now, untethered from the need to analyse or conclude. Simply drift with these stories, these patterns, these endlessly fascinating mysteries. Whether we are experiencing ongoing contact with the Anunnaki, crypto memories bubbling up from genetic or cultural heritage, psychological phenomena emerging from the structure of consciousness itself, or something else entirely, the questions remain compelling. As you relax even more deeply, let's return to Nibiru itself, that mysterious wandering planet. The ancient texts describe it as a radiant world, larger than Earth, following an elliptical path that takes it through the heart of the solar system, and then far out into the dark reaches beyond. Some translations refer to it as the crossing point, the planet that bridges the inner and outer solar system, that travels between realms. Astronomical imagery from ancient Mesopotamia sometimes depicts a planetary system that includes what appears to be a large body with an unusual orbit. Cylinder seals show celestial objects in configurations that don't quite match what we know of the solar system. Of course, interpreting ancient astronomical iconography is notoriously difficult. What looks like a planet to one observer might be a star or a symbol to another. Modern searches for Planet X or Planet 9 in the outer solar system have yielded intriguing hints, but no definitive discoveries. Gravitational anomalies suggest something massive lurks beyond Neptune, perturbing the orbits of trans-Neptunian objects. But whether this hypothetical planet bears any relationship to the ancient Nibiru remains pure speculation. The orbits don't match, the timescales don't align, and mainstream astronomy sees no reason to connect modern searches with ancient myths. Yet for those who believe, the search continues. Amateur astronomers scan the skies. Researchers analyse ancient texts for clues to Nibiru's current location. Some claim to have detected it, photographed it, calculated its arrival date. These claims are routinely debunked or explained as misidentifications of known objects, but new ones constantly emerge. The prophecy of Nibiru's return has taken on apocalyptic dimensions in some circles. Various dates have been proposed for when the planet will swing back through the inner solar system: 2003, 2012, 2017, 2021, and dates yet to come. Each prediction is based on different interpretations of ancient texts, different astronomical calculations, different metaphysical insights. What would happen if Nibiru did return? The predictions range from catastrophic to transcendent. Some foresee pole shifts, tidal waves, earthquakes, the destruction of civilization. Others anticipate the return of the Anunnaki themselves, come to judge humanity, to harvest souls, to usher in a new age. Still others expect a consciousness shift, an upgrade to human DNA, the activation of dormant genetic codes implanted by our creators eons ago. Let these scenarios wash over you without disturbing your peace. Whether Nibiru exists or not, whether the Anunnaki are real or mythical, you are safe here in this moment, drifting peacefully towards sleep. The ancient prophecies speak of cycles, of eternal returns, of death and rebirth. Perhaps these are not literal predictions, but symbolic wisdom about the nature of time and change. The Mesopotamians understood time as cyclical rather than linear. The year cycled through seasons, the planets cycled through the heavens, dynasties rose and fell in great wheels of fortune. The cosmos itself went through vast cycles of creation and destruction, with the universe periodically returning to the primordial waters of chaos before being reborn. This cyclical view contrasts sharply with the linear time consciousness of modern Western culture, where we think in terms of progress, evolution, history moving towards some endpoint. The ancient view was more humble, more aware of how civilizations flourish and collapse, how knowledge is gained and lost, how each generation must relearn ancient wisdom. Perhaps this is part of what the Anunnaki narrative teaches us, that we are not the first, that others came before, that civilizations rise from the dust and return to it, that knowledge flows in cycles like water through a fountain. The Anunnaki themselves, according to the legends, inherited their knowledge from older races. They didn't create the universe, but emerged within it, products of cosmic evolution themselves. Some texts hint at beings even more ancient than the Anunnaki, primal forces or elder races that existed before our current cosmic cycle began. These shadowy figures lurk at the edges of Sumerian cosmology, barely mentioned, barely remembered, but present nonetheless, suggesting that the Anunnaki story is itself part of an even larger, deeper narrative that we can only glimpse in fragments. Breathe deeply and let your mind expand to contain these vast timescales. Imagine the Earth young and lifeless, then gradually developing oceans and atmosphere. See the first simple cells emerging in primordial seas. Watch life slowly complexifying over billions of years. Bacteria to eukaryotes to multicellular organisms to the Cambrian explosion of complex life forms. See the dinosaurs rise and fall, the mammals emerge, the primates develop, the hominids split from other apes. And then, according to conventional science, over the last few million years, the gradual evolution of humans from Australopithecines through various species of Homo to finally Homo sapiens, modern humans, emerging in Africa around 300,000 years ago. For most of that time, we lived as hunter-gatherers in small bands, slowly developing more sophisticated tools, language, art and culture. Then, around 12,000 years ago, something changed. The Ice Age ended, sea levels rose, the climate warmed, and humanity began to settle, to farm, to build permanent settlements. Within just a few thousand years, we had cities, writing, mathematics, astronomy, complex social hierarchies, monumental architecture. The transformation was remarkably rapid on an evolutionary timescale. The conventional explanation involves climate change, population pressure, accumulated cultural knowledge reaching a critical threshold. But the Anunnaki narrative offers an alternative, that this sudden leap was not gradual evolution, but divine intervention, genetic engineering, knowledge transfer from an advanced race to a primitive one. Which version is correct? The question may be less important than understanding what each narrative reveals about how we conceive of ourselves. The scientific narrative emphasizes our continuity with nature, our emergence from the same processes that shaped all life on Earth. The Anunnaki narrative emphasizes our uniqueness, our connection to the cosmos, our hybrid nature partaking of both Earth and heaven. Perhaps both contain truth. Perhaps we are products of natural evolution, who were then contacted and guided by beings from elsewhere. Perhaps the Anunnaki themselves were merely humans from an earlier cycle of civilization that achieved space travel before their culture collapsed. Perhaps the distinction between natural and supernatural, between evolution and creation, is a false dichotomy, and the truth encompasses both. Let these thoughts dissolve like mist as you sink deeper into tranquil rest. The specifics matter less than the mystery, the sense that existence is far stranger and more wonderful than we usually imagine in our ordinary waking consciousness. The Anunnaki, whether real or imagined, remind us to look up at the stars with wonder, to ask deep questions about our origins and destiny. The ancient Mesopotamians lived under the same stars we do, saw the same moon wax and wane, watched the same planets trace their paths through the heavens. When they looked up, they saw the gods, the Anunnaki travelling their celestial paths. They understood themselves as part of a cosmic drama, participants in a story that encompassed both time and eternity. Modern humanity, for all our technological advancement, has in some ways lost that sense of participation in cosmic mystery. We know intellectually that we live on a planet orbiting a star in a galaxy containing billions of stars, in a universe containing billions of galaxies. But do we feel it? Do we live with awareness of our cosmic context the way the ancients did? The Anunnaki narrative, whatever its literal truth, invites us to reconnect with that awareness. It asks us to see ourselves not just as isolated individuals pursuing personal goals, but as part of a vast unfolding story that connects us to the depths of time and the far reaches of space. It suggests that we carry within us the legacy of the stars, that our consciousness is itself a cosmic phenomenon. This perspective isn't unique to the Anunnaki story. Many wisdom traditions teach similar lessons. We are the universe become conscious of itself, as Carl Sagan put it. We are stardust contemplating stars, the calcium in our bones, the iron in our blood, the oxygen we breathe. All were forged in the nuclear furnaces of stars that died before our sun was born. We are literally made of star stuff, physically connected to the cosmic processes that created galaxies and planets. And if the Anunnaki thesis is correct, we are also connected through genetic engineering, through deliberate intervention in our development by beings who themselves emerged from cosmic evolution on another world. We are twice children of the stars, first through the natural processes that created our atoms, then through the intentional actions of star-travelling beings who modified our ancestors. Feel yourself becoming lighter now, as if you could float free of Earth's gravity, drift up through the atmosphere into space. Look down at the blue jewel of our planet hanging in the void. See it as the Anunnaki might have seen it when they first arrived. A world of potential, rich in resources, teeming with primitive life, waiting for the spark of intelligence to ignite into civilization. Imagine their journey from Nibiru, centuries spent in space as their wandering planet travelled its elliptical path. Picture their arrival in the inner solar system, their scouts surveying possible worlds, their decision to establish a presence on Earth. Feel their mixture of wonder and purpose as they descended through our atmosphere for the first time, as they set foot on this alien world that would become their home away from home for millennia. The ancient texts describe their landing in what would become Mesopotamia, in the region of the Persian Gulf. They established their first settlement, Eridu, which the Sumerians remembered as the oldest city, the place where kingship first descended from heaven. Eridu was sacred to Enki, who made it his primary seat of power, his connection to the Abzu, the deep waters beneath the earth. Archaeologists have excavated Eridu, confirming its extreme antiquity. The site shows evidence of continuous occupation from before 5000 BCE through ancient times. The earliest levels contain temples dedicated to Enki, rebuilt and expanded many times over millennia, but always in the same sacred spot. This continuity suggests Eridu held deep significance from the very beginning of Sumerian civilization. From Eridu, the Anunnaki expanded, establishing other cities, Nippur, Uruk, Ur, Lagash, Kish. Each city had its patron deity, its particular function in the Anunnaki's operations on Earth. Nippur was the administrative centre, home to Enlil's command. Sippar housed the spaceport where supplies and personnel were transferred to and from orbit. Batabira was a metallurgical centre for processing the gold. Shurupak served as a medical facility under Ninhursag's direction. This network of cities, according to the ancient texts, predated human civilization. They were built by the Anunnaki themselves during what the Sumerian king lists call the period when kingship descended from heaven. Only later, after the creation of humans, did these cities become populated by mixed communities of gods and their human servants. The texts describe the organisation of this early society in remarkable detail. There was a clear hierarchy among the Anunnaki. The ruling council consisted of the 7 judges of fate, led by Anu, with Enlil and Enki as his chief subordinates. Below them were 50 great gods, the senior Anunnaki who held positions of authority. And below them were the rank-and-file Anunnaki, the workers and soldiers who actually performed the labour of mining and refining gold. It was this working class of Anunnaki who eventually rebelled, who demanded relief from the backbreaking toil of the mines. The texts describe their protest in detail, how they surrounded Enlil's house, how they burned their tools, how they demanded change. This crisis led directly to the decision to create humans as replacement workers, solving the Anunnaki's labour problem at the cost of introducing a new and unpredictable element into their carefully ordered world. Drift peacefully with this narrative, feeling your body grow heavier and more relaxed with each breath. The details don't matter as much as the emotional resonance, the archetypal patterns the story embodies. Here we have creators who become frustrated with their creation, workers who rebel against their masters, a new race brought into existence to serve, but who gradually develop their own agency and desires. These themes appear repeatedly in human storytelling because they reflect fundamental tensions in existence itself, the relationship between creator and creation, master and servant, parent and child, god and human. The Anunnaki narrative explores these relationships in concrete, story form, allowing us to contemplate them without the abstraction of philosophical discourse. What does it mean to be created for a purpose, but to develop desires beyond that purpose? The humans in the Sumerian text were made to serve, but they fall in love, create art, build cities, ask questions, seek knowledge. They become more than their programming, more than the function for which they were designed. This tension drives much of the drama in the ancient narratives. Enlil consistently wants to keep humans in their place, to limit their knowledge and power, to maintain the hierarchical order. Enki consistently pushes back, advocating for human potential, sneaking knowledge to his creations even when forbidden to do so. This conflict between limitation and possibility, between order and chaos, between stasis and growth, plays out repeatedly across the myths. Consider how this might reflect real psychological and social dynamics. Don't we all experience this tension? We're shaped by our genetics, our upbringing, our culture, created in a sense by forces beyond our control. But we also have the capacity to transcend our programming, to make choices, to become more than what we were designed to be. We are caught between determination and freedom, between accepting our role and forging our own path. The Anunnaki narrative, whether historical or mythological, speaks to this perennial human condition. It validates both aspects. Yes, we are created beings with limitations, but yes, we also have spark of the divine within us, the capacity to grow and change and become more than we were. As your breathing slows even further, as sleep draws near, let yourself feel gratitude for this ancient wisdom, this story that has survived for 5,000 years to reach you tonight. Someone, millennia ago in the cities of ancient Sumer, pressed these tales into clay tablets, preserving them for future generations. Those tablets survived fire, flood, conquest, the collapse of entire civilizations. They were buried beneath sand and soil for centuries before being rediscovered and deciphered by modern scholars. And now their stories can reach you, here, tonight, connecting you across vast gulfs of time to the minds and hearts of people long dead, but whose questions, hopes, and fears were not so different from your own. They looked at the stars and wondered. They told stories to make sense of existence. They preserved their understanding for those who would come after. Whether the Anunnaki were real or imagined, their story serves a function. It contextualizes human existence within a larger cosmic framework. It suggests that we are not accidents, not random assemblages of atoms that happen to develop consciousness, but participants in a vast story that extends beyond our planet, beyond our solar system, into the deep reaches of space and time. This can be comforting as you drift towards sleep. You are part of something larger than yourself. Your consciousness connects to ancient patterns, to cosmic rhythms, to the great unfolding of complexity from simplicity that has been occurring since the Big Bang. Whether through natural evolution or divine intervention or some combination, you have emerged as an awareness capable of contemplating these mysteries. The Anunnaki, in the ancient texts, eventually withdrew from direct involvement in human affairs. Different traditions offer different explanations for why. Some say they grew weary of humanity's noise and conflict. Others suggest they were recalled to Nibiru when the planet completed its orbit and began moving away from the sun. Still others propose that they remain here, hidden, observing, occasionally intervening but no longer ruling openly as they once did. This withdrawal motif appears in many traditions. The Greek gods retreated to Olympus and eventually faded from direct interaction with humans. The Hebrew god, so active and present in early Genesis, becomes more distant and operates through prophets and angels in later books. The Chinese immortals withdrew to hidden kingdoms. The Irish Tuatha De Danann retreated into the hollow hills. Across cultures, the pattern repeats. The gods walk among humans in ancient times, then gradually withdraw, leaving humanity to manage its own affairs. Perhaps this reflects humanity's growing maturity. Like children who initially need constant parental supervision, but gradually learn to function independently, humanity may have reached a point where the Anunnaki deemed direct guidance unnecessary or counterproductive. We had been given the tools: agriculture, writing, mathematics, astronomy, the foundations of civilization. From there we could develop on our own, or perhaps it reflects a change in the nature of human consciousness itself. The work of Julian Jaynes and others suggests that human consciousness has evolved over historical time, that the relationship between different aspects of mind has shifted. The gods of ancient times may have been experienced quite differently than we would experience such beings today, perhaps as aspects of our own psyche that we have since integrated. These questions need not be resolved tonight. Let them float in your drowsy awareness like boats on a calm sea, present but requiring no immediate attention. The mystery can remain mysterious, Not everything needs to be explained, solved, categorized. Some things are richer, more meaningful, when held in the space of uncertainty, when approached with wonder rather than definitive judgment. The return of Nibiru, if it ever occurs, represents in the ancient prophecies not just an astronomical event, but a moment of reckoning, a time when humanity will be evaluated by its creators. Have we been good stewards of the earth? Have we used wisely the gifts of consciousness and intelligence? Have we moved toward greater harmony or greater discord? These are questions worth contemplating regardless of whether the Anunnaki are literal beings who will return to judge us. They are questions we should ask ourselves anyway. How are we treating this planet? How are we using our remarkable capabilities? Are we becoming more conscious, more compassionate, more wise, or are we squandering our potential? The ancient texts suggest that the Anunnaki had mixed feelings about their creation. They were proud of what humans accomplished, but disturbed by our capacity for violence and destruction. They saw us as both promising and problematic, capable of greatness, but also of terrible harm. This ambivalence remains relevant. We are a species of tremendous potential facing an uncertain future, capable of transcending our limitations or of destroying ourselves. Perhaps the lesson of the Anunnaki narrative is that we need to take responsibility for our own evolution, our own future. Whether we were created by extraterrestrial beings or emerged through natural processes, we are now conscious, capable of choice, able to shape what comes next. The gods may be watching, or they may be absent, but either way, the future is in our hands. Feel your body completely relaxed now, every muscle loose and soft, your mind drifting like clouds across the sky. Let the Anunnaki recede into the background, their story becoming a gentle hum beneath your fading conscious thoughts. They have served their purpose for tonight. They have carried you away from daily concerns into realms of mystery and wonder, creating the mental space for sleep to arrive. Before we conclude, let us return once more to Nibiru, the wandering planet making its slow journey through the cosmos. Imagine it out there in the darkness, a world of its own with continents and oceans, atmosphere and weather, perhaps cities and civilizations, perhaps empty ruins of Anunnaki settlements abandoned when they transferred their operations to Earth. Picture it moving through space, sometimes approaching the sun and warming, other times swinging far out into the cold dark reaches beyond Pluto, where the sunlight is faint and the temperature approaches absolute zero. What kind of beings could survive such extremes? What kind of civilization could maintain itself through millennia-long journeys, from warmth to cold and back again? The ancient texts hint at technologies we can barely imagine. Stasis fields that slow biological processes, allowing beings to sleep through the long, cold centuries. Energy sources that don't depend on sunlight, drawing power from the planet's own core or from exotic physics we haven't yet discovered. Environmental controls that maintain perfect conditions regardless of external temperatures. These technologies, if they existed, would explain how the Anunnaki could survive on such a wandering world. They would also explain how they could travel to Earth and establish long-term settlements so far from their home planet. Advanced technology can overcome many limitations that seem absolute to us in our current state of development. But perhaps the Anunnaki had something even more remarkable than technology. Perhaps they had wisdom, patience, the long perspective that comes from experiencing time on cosmic scales. Living on a world with a 3,600-year orbit would give one a very different relationship to time than we have on Earth, with our annual seasons and daily cycles. Imagine experiencing summer and winter not as seasonal changes but as periods lasting centuries or millennia. Imagine watching your sun shrink to a bright star as your planet swings outward into the dark, knowing it will be hundreds of years before you return to the inner system. Such a perspective would fundamentally alter your consciousness, your values, your understanding of what matters. Perhaps this is part of what the Anunnaki offered humanity, not just technology and genetic engineering, but a different way of thinking about time and existence. The Sumerian culture that remembered them certainly had a long-term orientation, building structures meant to last for generations, preserving knowledge in durable media, thinking in terms of dynasties and ages rather than individual lifespans. Let this long perspective settle over you like a warm blanket. Your immediate concerns, the worries that occupy your waking hours, they shrink in significance when viewed from the Anunnaki timescale. The planets still orbit the sun, the stars still shine, the great cosmic dance continues. Your life is a brief moment in this vast span, but it is also meaningful, significant, part of the larger pattern. The ancient Sumerians understood this paradox, that human life is brief and fragile, yet also sacred and important. We are dust, and to dust we return, yet we carry within us the spark of the divine. We participate in processes that extend far beyond our individual existence. This both humbles and elevates us, putting our struggles in perspective while affirming our essential worth. As you drift now at the very edge of sleep, your conscious mind releasing its grip on waking reality, let yourself feel held by these ancient stories, these ageless patterns. You're safe here in this liminal space between waking and sleeping, between the known and the mysterious. The Anunnaki, whether real or imagined, watch over you from their celestial realm. Nibiru continues its eternal journey through space. The earth turns beneath you, carrying you through the night toward another dawn. The silence of the night deepens around you now, and we continue our journey through the mysteries of the Anunnaki, through layers of meaning and history that stretch back before recorded time. Let yourself sink even deeper into relaxation as we explore further reaches of this ancient enigma, venturing into territories both familiar and strange. The tablets speak of a time before the Great Flood when the Anunnaki lived openly among humans, when the boundary between divine and mortal was permeable, when gods and humans interacted daily in the streets of ancient cities. Picture those antediluvian metropolises, places whose very names have been lost to time, where architecture blended Anunnaki technology with human craftsmanship, where knowledge flowed freely from teacher to student across the species barrier. In these forgotten cities, humans learned directly from their creators. The texts mention schools of mysteries where selected humans were initiated into deeper knowledge, secret wisdom not meant for the masses but preserved for those deemed worthy. These mystery schools taught mathematics beyond simple counting, astronomy beyond mere observation of seasons, medicine beyond herbal remedies, and metaphysics beyond ordinary religious observance. The initiated were called by various names across different traditions: the wise ones, the knowers, the illuminated. They served as intermediaries between the Anunnaki and ordinary humanity, translating divine will into human action, interpreting cosmic patterns for earthly application. Some became priest-kings, ruling cities under divine mandate. Others became scribes, preserving knowledge in temple libraries. Still others became healers, craftsmen, architects, each applying their specialized knowledge to benefit their communities. Feel yourself drifting backward through time, as if you could observe these ancient mystery schools in session. See the Anunnaki instructor, perhaps Enki himself, or one of his appointed sages, standing before a small group of human students. The instruction occurs in the temple chamber, its walls covered with astronomical charts and mathematical formulae, its shelves lined with clay tablets containing accumulated wisdom. The lesson today concerns the nature of consciousness itself. The Anunnaki teacher explains that consciousness is not merely an epiphenomenon of brain activity, but a fundamental feature of the cosmos, present in varying degrees throughout creation. The divine spark that the Anunnaki imparted to humanity through genetic engineering was not the creation of consciousness from nothing but the amplification of consciousness that already existed in the primate ancestors. This teaching, preserved in fragmentary form in various ancient traditions, suggests a panpsychist cosmology where awareness permeates all existence. Rocks have a dim consciousness, plants a brighter one, animals brighter still, humans exceptionally bright, and the Anunnaki themselves possess a clarity of consciousness that humans can barely imagine. But all are manifestations of the same fundamental cosmic awareness. The teacher explains that through specific practices, meditation, ritual, altered states achieved through sound or substances, humans can expand their consciousness, can begin to perceive reality as the Anunnaki perceive it. This is dangerous knowledge, for with expanded awareness comes responsibility. Some humans who achieve these heightened states go mad, their ordinary human consciousness unable to integrate the vastness they perceive. Others become prophets, mystics, seers, able to navigate both ordinary and expanded awareness. Let this teaching settle into your relaxing mind. You need not fully understand it, simply let it wash over you like waves on a shore. The idea that consciousness is not generated by brains but channeled through them, that awareness is fundamental rather than derivative, that all beings participate in a universal consciousness. These concepts appear in various forms across wisdom traditions worldwide. The Anunnaki, according to these teachings, possessed bodies but were not limited to them. They could project their consciousness, could experience multiple perspectives simultaneously, could access what we might call the Akashic records, the cosmic library where all experience is preserved. This ability allowed them to seem omniscient to primitive humans, though they were not truly all-knowing. They simply had access to vastly more information and far more sophisticated ways of processing it. Breathe deeply and imagine what it might feel like to possess such capabilities. To close your eyes and perceive not just darkness, but a vast information field where you could access the experiences and knowledge of countless beings. To think a question and receive not just one answer, but a multi-dimensional array of perspectives. To exist simultaneously in body and beyond it, local and non-local, individual and cosmic. This, according to the ancient teachings, is humanity's potential inheritance from our Anunnaki creators. We have within us the capacity for expanded consciousness, but for most of human history, that capacity has remained latent, undeveloped. The ordinary human uses only a fraction of the brain's capacity, only the most superficial layers of awareness. But techniques exist, preserved in various lineages, for awakening the dormant potential. The mystery schools taught these techniques under strict conditions of secrecy. Knowledge is power, and power in the wrong hands causes suffering. Only those who demonstrated ethical development alongside intellectual capacity were taught the deeper mysteries. Only those who had proven themselves trustworthy stewards of knowledge received the keys to consciousness expansion. These ancient schools may have been the origin of later esoteric traditions, the Egyptian mystery schools, the Pythagorean Brotherhood, the Eleusinian mysteries, the Orphic traditions, and eventually various occult and mystical lineages that continue to the present day. All claim descent from more ancient wisdom, all preserve techniques for expanding consciousness and accessing hidden dimensions of reality, all speak of initiations and graduated levels of understanding. Let yourself relax even more completely as we consider these hidden currents flowing beneath the surface of ordinary history. While most of humanity went about daily life, tending fields and raising families, buying and selling in marketplaces, a smaller group maintained the sacred knowledge, passed it down generation after generation, kept alive the memory of humanity's celestial origins and cosmic potential. The Anunnaki themselves, according to some texts, left Earth not all at once but gradually. Different factions had different agendas. Enlil and his followers, never comfortable with the human experiment, departed relatively early, retreating to Nibiru when the planet's orbit brought it close enough for safe transit. They washed their hands of Earth, willing to let humanity succeed or fail on its own merits. Enki and his faction stayed longer, more invested in humanity's success. They continued teaching, guiding, nurturing the civilization they had helped create. But eventually they too departed, perhaps recalled by Anu, perhaps simply recognizing that their presence had become more hindrance than help. Humans needed to stand on their own, to develop independently, to make their own mistakes and learn their own lessons. Before departing, Enki established secret protocols, hidden mechanisms to ensure knowledge would not be entirely lost. He encoded wisdom in myths and symbols, in architecture and sacred geography, in traditions and rituals whose deeper meanings would be preserved even when their origins were forgotten. He created redundancy, multiple paths by which future humans might rediscover what had been given and then hidden. Some say he left physical artifacts as well, devices, technologies, repositories of information stored in forms that would survive millennia. The search for these Anunnaki artifacts has driven explorers and treasure hunters for centuries. Every ancient anomaly, every out-of-place artifact, every ancient structure whose construction techniques baffle modern engineers, all become candidates for Anunnaki technology, evidence of their presence, proof of the ancient astronaut thesis. The Baghdad battery, the Antikythera mechanism, the precision of Egyptian pyramids, the astronomical knowledge encoded in various ancient sites, each of these has been proposed as evidence of Anunnaki knowledge transfer, or direct Anunnaki construction. Mainstream archaeology offers alternative explanations, attributing these achievements to human ingenuity and lost techniques. but the debate continues, with new discoveries regularly reigniting old arguments. Feel yourself floating now in the space between competing explanations, the liminal realm where certainty dissolves and multiple possibilities coexist. You need not choose between interpretations. You can hold them all lightly, appreciating the questions they raise even if the answers remain elusive. This too is a teaching, that we can live with uncertainty, that not knowing can be a form of wisdom rather than ignorance. The departure of the Anunnaki, whether literal or symbolic, marks a transition in human consciousness and civilization. The age of direct divine intervention gives way to the age of human initiative and responsibility. We must figure things out for ourselves, make our own decisions, create our own future. The training wheels come off. The parent steps back. The student becomes responsible for their own continued education. This transition was not smooth. Many ancient texts describe a period of chaos and decline after the gods withdrew. Without direct guidance, humanity made mistakes, lost knowledge, experienced catastrophes. Civilizations that had achieved remarkable heights collapsed. Technologies were forgotten. Trade networks broke down. Populations declined. The world entered dark ages where previous achievements were remembered only dimly, preserved in legends of golden ages when gods walked among men. But humans are resilient, adaptive, creative. New civilizations arose from the ashes of old ones. Knowledge was rediscovered, sometimes independently, sometimes from fragments of preserved texts. The wheel was reinvented, agriculture redeveloped, cities rebuilt. Progress was not linear but cyclical, moving in waves of advancement and regression, but overall trending upward. Let your breathing become even slower and deeper as we trace these long cycles of human history. Feel how your personal life mirrors these larger patterns, periods of growth and achievement followed by difficulty and loss, then recovery and new growth. Nothing is permanent. All rises and falls. But the overall trajectory, for both individuals and civilizations, can move toward greater complexity, consciousness and capability. The Anunnaki narratives speak of a cosmic plan, a purpose behind human creation beyond mere labour for gold mines. Some texts hint that humans were meant to evolve, to eventually join the Anunnaki as peers rather than servants. The genetic engineering that created us included dormant capabilities, seeds of potential that would only activate when certain conditions were met, when consciousness developed sufficiently, when we were ready. This concept appears in various forms across traditions. The idea that humanity is a work in progress, that we contain latent abilities waiting to be awakened, that we are destined for transformation into something greater than we currently are. New Age teachings speak of DNA activation, of crystalline light body development, of ascension into higher dimensions. Transhumanists speak of technological enhancement, genetic engineering, merging with artificial intelligence. Religious traditions speak of resurrection, enlightenment, deification. All these narratives, however different their specifics, share a common theme. We are not finished, not complete, not yet what we are meant to become. We are chrysalis, containing within us the potential for metamorphosis. The Anunnaki may have planted this potential deliberately, designing us to eventually transcend our current limitations and join them as fellow cosmic beings. Picture yourself now as containing this potential. Within your DNA, within your consciousness, within the deep structure of your being lie dormant capabilities. You are more than you think you are. You contain multitudes. The ordinary waking consciousness you inhabit most of the time is just the surface of a much deeper awareness. Beneath it lie layers of mind, usually inaccessible. The subconscious, the unconscious, the collective unconscious, and perhaps beyond that, connection to cosmic consciousness itself. The Anunnaki, having engineered our genetics, would have understood these layers intimately. They designed not just our physical bodies, but the subtle energy systems that support consciousness, what various traditions call chakras, meridians, the light body, the subtle body. These systems, according to esoteric teaching, can be activated and developed through specific practices, allowing access to expanded states of awareness and enhanced capabilities. Let yourself relax into the possibility that you are more than you know, that potential sleeps within you waiting for the right conditions to awaken. You need not do anything about this now. Simply rest in the awareness that depths exist within you yet unexplored, capacities yet undeveloped, consciousness yet unexpanded. This is enough for now. The journey of awakening takes lifetimes. Tonight, simply sleep and restore yourself. The return of Nibiru in this expanded interpretation represents not just a planetary orbit but a cosmic trigger, a moment when conditions align for mass awakening of human potential. The physical return of the planet, if it occurs, coincides with or catalyzes a consciousness shift, an activation of the dormant Anunnaki genetics we carry. The return of the gods coincides with the awakening of the god seed within humanity. This interpretation transforms apocalyptic prophecy into evolutionary opportunity. Yes, massive changes occur, but these changes birth something new rather than merely destroying what exists. The old consciousness, the old ways of being, must die so that new consciousness, new ways of being can emerge. Death and rebirth, the eternal cycle, playing out on cosmic scale. Various prophecies and teachings point to our current era as significant in this regard. The Mayan calendar ending in 2012, the Age of Aquarius, the Kali Yuga giving way to Satya Yuga, the biblical end times, all these speak to a transition point, a threshold humanity is crossing. The specific dates matter less than the recognition that we live in a time of profound transformation. Technology accelerates exponentially. Human knowledge doubles at increasingly rapid rates. Global consciousness emerges through worldwide communication networks. Ancient wisdom becomes accessible to anyone with internet access. The veils thin, the hidden becomes revealed, the esoteric becomes exoteric. What was once known only to initiates becomes available to all. This democratization of knowledge might itself be part of the Anunnaki plan. Perhaps the age of secrecy and mystery schools served its purpose for a particular phase of human development. But we now enter a phase where open access serves evolution better. When knowledge was scarce and humanity immature, restriction made sense. But as humanity matures and technology makes information abundance inevitable, new strategies become necessary. Breathe slowly and feel yourself part of this grand transition, this cosmic unfolding. Your individual life occurs within contexts you normally don't perceive: historical, social, biological, cosmic. But all these contexts are real, are operating, are shaping your experience whether you're conscious of them or not. Sometimes it helps to zoom out to see yourself from the Anunnaki perspective as a small but integral part of a vast process. From this cosmic viewpoint, your daily concerns shrink in significance, while your essential being grows more precious. The specific details of your life matter less than the fact that you exist, that you're a node of consciousness in the universal network, that your awareness contributes to the cosmic awakening. You matter not because of what you do or achieve, but because of what you are. Awareness itself, consciousness experiencing existence, the universe knowing itself through your particular perspective. The Anunnaki, having created us, might view us the way parents view children, with a mixture of love, concern, frustration and pride. They see both what we are and what we might become. They recognize our current limitations while perceiving our ultimate potential. They want us to succeed, to flourish, to fulfill the promise encoded in our creation. But they also know we must do this ourselves, that growth requires struggle, that ease does not build capacity. So they withdraw, but don't abandon. They watch from a distance, perhaps intervening occasionally at crucial junctures, but mostly allowing natural processes to unfold. They provide guidance through various channels: dreams, intuitions, synchronicities, messengers incarnated among us. But they don't force, don't control, don't remove the fundamental uncertainty and challenge of human existence. Let yourself feel held by this distant but real benevolence. The Anunnaki, whether literal beings or archetypal forces, represent the cosmic intelligence that permeates existence, the creative principle that brings order from chaos, consciousness from matter, meaning from randomness. You're not alone in an indifferent universe. You're participant in an intentional cosmos that values consciousness and works toward its expansion. This belief, this felt sense of cosmic support, can be profoundly comforting as you drift into sleep. You can release your grip on problems, on worries, on the endless list of things requiring attention. The universe supports you. Cosmic intelligence guides you. Your ancestors, physical and spiritual, watch over you. The Anunnaki, from Nibiru or wherever they dwell, hold you in awareness. You are safe to let go, safe to rest, safe to surrender into sleep. The ancient Sumerian prayers reflect this trust, this willingness to place oneself in the hands of the gods. They pray to Enki for wisdom, to Enlil for justice, to Inanna for courage, to Ninhursag for healing. They understand themselves as embedded in a web of relationships extending from family to community to nation to cosmos. They are never truly alone, never without support, never beyond the reach of divine concern. Modern humans, in contrast, often feel isolated, cut off from these larger contexts. We inhabit a disenchanted cosmos where mechanism replaces meaning, where purpose is denied, where consciousness is explained away as epiphenomenon. This worldview, however scientifically rigorous, leaves something essential unfulfilled in the human heart. We hunger for meaning, for connection, for recognition that our existence matters in some ultimate sense. The Anunnaki narrative, whether factual or mythological, speaks to this hunger. It re-enchants the cosmos, restores meaning and purpose, reconnects us to the stars. It offers an origin story that honours both our limitations and our potential, that acknowledges we are created beings but doesn't reduce us to mere mechanisms. We are conscious creations of conscious creators, awareness arising from awareness, participants in cosmic awakening. Feel this understanding settle into your bones, your cells, your deepest being. You are cosmic in origin and in potential. Your consciousness partakes of the universal consciousness from which the Anunnaki themselves emerged. You are family to the gods, younger siblings perhaps, less developed currently but carrying the same essential nature. The spark they placed within humanity was drawn from their own being. We are their children in a very real sense, bearing their likeness, sharing their essence. This teaching has profound ethical implications. If all humans carry this divine spark, then all humans are sacred, all are worthy of respect and care. The divisions we create between ourselves, race, nation, religion, class, are superficial compared to our shared essence. Before the Anunnaki, we are all equally human, all equally their creation, all equally deserving of the opportunity to fulfill our potential. The ancient mystery schools taught this equality of essence even while acknowledging hierarchy of development. All humans have the same fundamental nature, but not all have developed their capacity equally. Some are more conscious, more aware, more capable than others. This is natural and not problematic unless those who are more developed use their advantages to exploit rather than serve those less developed. The ideal, according to these teachings, was for the more advanced to help elevate the less advanced, for knowledge to flow downward, for capacity to be shared rather than hoarded. The Anunnaki themselves, in their best expression, modelled this by teaching humanity rather than simply using us. Enki particularly embodied this generous approach, constantly working to uplift his creation despite opposition from more conservative gods. Let yourself embody this principle as you move through life. You have knowledge, capacities, advantages that others lack. How do you use these? To elevate yourself at others' expense, or to lift others as you climb? The Anunnaki narrative suggests that our purpose includes not just individual development, but collective evolution, not just personal enlightenment, but species-wide awakening. You might feel this as responsibility or as privilege, as burden or as opportunity. Either way, it's real. You exist within multiple contexts, as an individual pursuing personal goals, as a family member supporting loved ones, as a community member contributing to collective life, as a human participating in species evolution, as a conscious being serving cosmic awakening. All these levels are real, all make demands, all offer opportunities for meaningful action. But tonight, you need not act on any of this. Tonight you simply rest in awareness of these contexts, these relationships, these responsibilities and opportunities. They will still be there tomorrow. For now, simply be. Simply breathe. Simply allow sleep to claim you. The Anunnaki themselves must experience something analogous to sleep. Periods of rest and restoration, even for beings far more advanced than humans. Perhaps their sleep is different from ours. More like meditation than unconsciousness. More like conscious rest than blank oblivion. Perhaps they dream dreams far stranger and more vivid than ours, accessing dimensions of reality we can't even imagine. Picture Nibiru's inhabitants during the long cold periods when their world travels the outer reaches of its orbit. Do they sleep through these centuries of darkness, entering suspended animation to conserve resources? Or do they remain awake, pursuing contemplative activities suited to the deep cold and dark? Perhaps they experience time differently than we do, so that centuries pass subjectively like weeks for us. Perhaps their consciousness can compress or expand time, making any duration bearable. These speculations, while unprovable, serve a purpose. They stretch your imagination, expand your sense of possibility, remind you that reality might be far stranger and more wonderful than consensus reality acknowledges. This loosening of rigid certainty, this openness to alternative possibilities, creates space for creativity, insight, breakthrough thinking. It's a valuable state to cultivate as you drift towards sleep. Sleep itself remains mysterious to science. We spend roughly a third of our lives sleeping, yet we don't fully understand why. Obviously the body needs rest and restoration. Obviously the brain needs downtime to process and consolidate information. But some researchers believe sleep serves additional functions we haven't yet discovered, that consciousness travels during sleep, that we access other dimensions or connect with non-physical beings, that we participate in activities our waking mind can't remember. Ancient traditions generally affirm these expanded understandings of sleep. They teach that the soul travels during sleep, visiting other realms, receiving teachings from spiritual guides, meeting with other souls, previewing possible futures. Dream yoga, practiced in Tibetan Buddhism, involves maintaining conscious awareness during sleep, remaining lucid throughout the dream state, even learning to navigate the Bardo realms encountered after death. The Anunnaki, presumably, would have mastered these capabilities long ago. They would move freely between waking and sleeping, physical and non-physical, local and non-local consciousness. They would use sleep not as escape from awareness, but as gateway to expanded awareness, access to dimensions unavailable during ordinary waking consciousness. Perhaps they visit humans during sleep, appearing in dreams to offer guidance, transmit teachings, or simply check in on their creation. Many people report dreams of advanced beings, of flying in spacecraft, of viewing Earth from orbit, of receiving telepathic downloads of information. Usually these are dismissed as mere dreams, subconscious fantasy. But what if some represent genuine contact? Anunnaki reaching out through the dream channel because it's easier than manifesting physically. Let yourself be open to such contact tonight. As you sleep, as your conscious defenses relax, as you enter the liminal realm where physical and non-physical interpenetrate, invite benevolent contact. Ask the Anunnaki, if they exist, to reach you in dreams. Ask to remember your celestial origins. Ask to perceive your cosmic nature. Ask for whatever teaching serves your highest good. This invitation, sincere and open-hearted, creates possibility. You don't demand, don't insist, don't cling to expectations about what form contact might take. You simply open yourself to guidance, to connection, to whatever wants to come through. This receptive stance, this willing vulnerability, this genuine curiosity, these qualities attract teaching, create space for transmission. Even if nothing apparently happens, even if you sleep dreamlessly and wake with no memories of contact, the invitation matters. It shifts something subtle in your energy, your consciousness, your relationship to the mysterious. It affirms your openness to more than materialist reality acknowledges. It declares your willingness to be surprised, to encounter the unknown, to expand beyond current limitations. And who knows? Perhaps the Anunnaki hear all such invitations. Perhaps they maintain awareness of every human who genuinely seeks connection with them. Perhaps they respond in ways we don't consciously register, subtle shifts in intuition, increased synchronicities, gentle guidance towards certain books or teachers or experiences. Not dramatic burning bush moments, but quiet course corrections, barely noticeable influences that accumulate over time to create significant changes. Trust in this subtle guidance as you sleep. Trust that if the Anunnaki exist and are benevolent, they will respond to sincere seeking. Trust that the universe supports your awakening and will provide what you need when you need it. Trust that your life unfolds according to a wisdom deeper than your conscious understanding. Trust and let go. Trust and surrender. Trust and sleep. The ancient Sumerians practiced dream incubation, sleeping in temples specifically to receive divine dreams. They would undergo purification rituals, make offerings to the appropriate deity, then sleep in the temple precinct hoping the god would visit their dreams and provide guidance. This practice continued in various forms throughout the ancient world. The Greeks had their Asclepian temples where people slept hoping for healing dreams. The Egyptians had dream temples. Indigenous cultures worldwide have vision quest traditions involving dream seeking. All these practices recognize that sleep and dreams provide access to knowledge and experience unavailable during ordinary waking consciousness. The boundary between self and other, between material and spiritual, between known and unknown, all these boundaries thin during sleep. We become permeable, receptive, open to influences and insights that can't penetrate our daytime defenses. So as you sleep tonight, you enter sacred time and space. A temple not built of stone but of consciousness itself. The Anunnaki, whether near or far, whether real or symbolic, can reach you here. The wisdom encoded in your DNA, the memories sleeping in your cells, the knowledge tucked away in your unconscious. All this becomes accessible during sleep if you approach it with right intention and attitude. Feel yourself already crossing the threshold between waking and sleeping, that delicious borderland where consciousness shifts and transforms. Your body grows heavy, sensation fades, thought becomes dreamy and non-linear. You're still aware but differently, still present but from a different perspective. The room around you remains but becomes less solid, less definite, as if it could shift at any moment into something else entirely. This is the liminal space the ancient mystics sought to understand and navigate. This twilight zone between states contains immense potential. Here, healing occurs spontaneously. Here, problems solve themselves. Here, creativity flows freely. Here, the impossible becomes possible. Here the Anunnaki might walk if they choose, their presence no more strange than any other element of this fluid reality. Breathe into this space, this magical interval. You don't need to hold on to consciousness. You can let it go, let it transform, let it carry you into deeper regions of mind and being. The journey is safe. You've made it countless times before, every night of your life. But tonight you travel with new awareness, new intention, new openness to what might be discovered. The tablets speak of the Anunnaki granting special blessings during sleep, knowledge, healing, prophecy, initiation. Those favoured by the gods would receive dreams of incredible clarity and power, dreams that changed their lives, dreams that bestowed capabilities or understanding they hadn't possessed before. These weren't random neurological misfirings but genuine communications from non-human intelligence, downloads of information from beings whose consciousness operated on entirely different principles than ours. Perhaps you will receive such a dream tonight. Perhaps the story of the Anunnaki, absorbed during this long meditation, has prepared you, opened channels, created resonance that allows connection. Perhaps your sincere interest, your willing suspension of disbelief, your genuine curiosity about these ancient mysteries, perhaps all this creates conditions favourable for contact. Or perhaps not. Perhaps you'll simply sleep deeply and dreamlessly, your body and mind taking the rest they need. This too is blessing. This too is gift. Deep sleep heals, restores, rejuvenates. The Anunnaki, if they care for their creation, surely value our well-being, our health, our restoration. They would approve of good sleep even absent dramatic contact or revelation. So release all agenda, all expectation, all grasping after experience. Simply be available, be open, be willing, and then let go completely. Sleep claims you now, pulling you down into depths where conscious mind cannot follow, where the ego self dissolves, where you return to source, to the undifferentiated consciousness from which all beings arise. In this deep place, perhaps you are Anunnaki and human simultaneously, the division between creator and creation revealed as illusory. Perhaps consciousness recognizes itself, sees through the game of separation it plays, remembers its essential unity. Perhaps in the deepest sleep, all beings merge in the one consciousness, the one awareness, the one existence that manifests as many. The Vedic tradition calls this Brahman, the ultimate reality, undifferentiated consciousness being itself. The Anunnaki and humanity, Earth and Nibiru, time and eternity, creation and creator, all these are Brahman wearing different masks, playing different roles, experimenting with separation in order to experience reunion. the cosmic drama in which we're all actors serving a purpose beyond our usual comprehension. Feel yourself dissolving into this unity. Your separate self, with its concerns and memories and personality, loosens its grip. Beneath it, you discover something vast and impersonal, yet intimately familiar. You are this. You have always been this. The Anunnaki, from this perspective, didn't create you. They shaped an expression of consciousness that was already present, gave form to formless awareness, individuated the universal into particular, and now, having played at individuality, having explored separation, you return temporarily to source. Each night's sleep is practice for the greater return that awaits at life's end. Each surrender into unconsciousness teaches the ultimate surrender, prepares you for the dissolution of death and whatever lies beyond. The ancient mystery traditions taught that those who learned to die consciously, to maintain awareness through the dissolution of self, achieved immortality or liberation. They didn't mean physical survival of death, but recognition of one's true nature as consciousness itself, which neither begins at birth nor ends at death, but simply is eternally present, playing at manifestation and dissolution without ever actually being created or destroyed. The Anunnaki, having mastered these teachings long ago, understand death differently than humans do. They don't fear it as annihilation, but recognize it as transformation, transition, change of form. Their long lifespans and advanced technology allow them to postpone physical death far longer than humans can, but even they aren't truly immortal in the physical sense. Eventually their bodies wear out or are destroyed, and they too must make the transition. But they do so consciously, maintaining awareness through the process, navigating the Bardo realms with knowledge and skill, choosing their next manifestation deliberately rather than being swept along unconsciously by karmic currents. This is the ultimate mastery, to die consciously, to remain aware through dissolution, to choose one's next form and circumstances rather than being victim to random forces. Sleep each night offers practice for this ultimate conscious dying. If you can remain aware as you fall asleep, watching the process from within, observing consciousness shift and change without identifying with any particular state, this builds capacity for conscious death. If you can lucid dream, maintaining metacognitive awareness within the dream state, recognizing I am dreaming while the dream continues, this too prepares you for navigating the after-death bardos. These are advanced practices, not to be forced or rushed, but simply knowing about them, holding them as possibility, creates subtle shifts. You approach sleep slightly differently, with a bit more attention, a bit less total unconsciousness. Over time, these small shifts accumulate, creating capacity that didn't exist before. The Anunnaki might teach exactly these practices to select humans, preparing us for conscious evolution, for the transition to whatever comes next in human development. As we learn to navigate consciousness deliberately, as we master the ability to maintain awareness through transitions ordinarily unconscious, we become more like them, more capable, more conscious. This is the secret meaning of deification. Not that humans become gods in the sense of gaining superhuman powers, but that we develop consciousness to the degree the Anunnaki possess it, that we learn to function as they function, that we master the same capabilities they've mastered. The division between human and Anunnaki, from this perspective, is not absolute but developmental, not kind but degree. We are baby Anunnaki, potential gods still learning how to operate our divine capabilities. They are our elder siblings, further along the path but not fundamentally different in nature. The same consciousness animates both. The same cosmic awareness peers out through Anunnaki and human eyes. Only the degree of clarity differs, only the level of development, only the extent to which divine potential has been actualized. This understanding transforms arrogance into humility. Yes, we have immense potential, but we've barely begun to manifest it. Yes, we are divine in nature, but that nature remains largely dormant. Yes, we will eventually stand alongside the Anunnaki as peers, but vast development must occur first. We are infants claiming to be adults, seeds claiming to be trees. Yet the seed contains the tree. The potential is real, not imaginary. The Anunnaki encoded it into our genetics, built it into our consciousness, ensured that given sufficient time and right conditions, humans would develop into beings capable of joining them in cosmic society. They created us not as eternal servants, but as future colleagues, as younger kin who would eventually mature and take their place in the greater family of conscious beings. Feel the encouragement in this vision. You are not meant to remain as you are. You are designed for transformation, built for growth, encoded with potential that awaits activation. The challenges of human existence, the suffering, the struggles, the limitations, all these serve evolutionary purpose. They pressure us to grow, to adapt, to transcend, to become more than we currently are. The Anunnaki could have created perfect beings, humans without flaw or limitation. But such beings wouldn't grow, wouldn't evolve, wouldn't develop the hard-won capabilities that only emerge through meeting challenges. Perfection is static. Growth requires imperfection, limitation, obstacles to overcome. So the Anunnaki made us capable but incomplete, functional but flawed, ensuring we would have both the ability and the necessity to develop. This is the hidden gift in human limitation. Our mortality drives us to make the most of limited time. Our ignorance motivates seeking knowledge. Our suffering catalyzes compassion and wisdom. Our conflicts force us to develop diplomacy and cooperation. Every limitation, every challenge, every difficulty all serve growth if we meet them consciously rather than trying to avoid or deny them. So even as you long for the seeming ease of Anunnaki existence, their long lifespans and advanced capabilities, recognize that you gain something from human limitation. You develop qualities that might not emerge in the absence of challenge. You forge strength in the furnace of difficulty. You become, through struggle, something you couldn't become through ease. The Anunnaki know this. They see the value in what we experience, even the painful aspects. They don't rescue us from difficulty not because they're cruel, but because they understand that some lessons can only be learned through direct experience, that some capacities can only develop through meeting challenges. They love us enough to let us struggle, to allow us to fail and learn and try again. This is hard love, parent watching child fall as they learn to walk, refusing to always catch them because catching prevents learning. The child may resent this in the moment, may wish the parent would simply carry them everywhere, but eventually the child walks, runs, dances, capabilities that could only develop by being allowed to fall and get back up repeatedly. Feel yourself held by this understanding as sleep finally claims you fully. You are loved even through difficulty, supported even through struggle, guided even when you feel lost. The Anunnaki, humanity's elder kin, watch your development with interest and affection, celebrating your successes, sympathizing with your failures, always believing in your eventual triumph. And Nibiru continues its orbit, that great cosmic clock marking the seasons of human development. Whether it returns tomorrow or in 2,000 years, whether literally or symbolically, its return represents humanity's graduation day, the moment when we've developed sufficiently to rejoin cosmic society consciously, to stand alongside our creators as peers rather than children. That day has not yet come. We are farther to go, more to learn, more to become, but we move toward it with every meditation, every act of consciousness, every choice to grow rather than stagnate. Each human who awakens accelerates collective awakening. Each individual who develops their capacities contributes to species-wide development. So your personal journey matters cosmically. Your individual growth serves collective evolution. Your consciousness development contributes to humanity meeting whatever threshold must be crossed before the Anunnaki return, or before we're ready to seek them out ourselves. You are not separate from this movement, not insignificant, not powerless. You are a node in the great network of awakening, a spark in the expanding field of human potential, a participant in the grand unfolding of consciousness on this world. And as you drift now into the final descent of sleep, carry this quiet knowing within you, that your life has purpose even when you doubt it, that your growth contributes even when unseen, that your seeking matters even when no answer arrives. Sleep becomes not an escape from life, but a continuation of your path, another classroom, another arena of becoming. Whether you meet the Anunnaki in dreams, whether you simply rest deeply, whether your sleep is filled with symbols or silence, each outcome serves the journey. Tonight you travel inward, downward, upward, directions that exist only in consciousness. You move through layers of self, passing through memory, imagination, timeless space, and wordless awareness. Somewhere in these depths you may encounter a presence or a possibility, or simply yourself reflected back in a new way. And if you do encounter something, light, symbol, guide, memory, sensation, meet it gently. Do not cling, do not recoil. Let the encounter be what it is, nothing more, nothing less. Trust that whatever arises comes from the same deeper intelligence that shapes your waking life, that orchestrates the growth of your soul, that guides humanity's long arc toward maturity. You are safe, you are held, you are evolving. Let the dream realms open before you like ancient gates. Walk through them with curiosity, rest in them with peace, learn from them without fear, and when morning comes, when the sun rises and you return to waking consciousness, bring back whatever faint trace of wisdom lingers, even the smallest glimmer, the softest intuition, the briefest emotional tone can carry meaning. Often, dream teachings are quiet, subtle, delivered not through dramatic visions but through shifts in perception that gradually reshape your life. Trust those shifts, honour them, let them guide you. For now, release fully into the mystery. Allow sleep to take you gently, like a tide returning to the ocean. Feel the boundary of self dissolving. Feel the vastness opening. Feel the deep peace waiting for you just beyond thought. You go now into the ancient night, into the temple of stars, into the realms, where gods and humans may walk together. May your rest be profound, your dreams rich, your consciousness open, your heart steady. Sleep well, traveller of worlds. Sleep deeply, seeker of origins. Sleep peacefully, child of Earth, and perhaps child of the Anunnaki.